The man on the phone knew the exact value of Richard Halverson's apartment before Richard even confirmed his name. Not an estimate, not a range, the exact number, down to the last $1,000. That was the moment Richard should have hung up. Instead, he sat down slowly in his chair, tightened his grip on the receiver, and listened. Richard had spent his entire life in New York. 40 years as a civil engineer had trained him to trust numbers, documents, and systems that made sense. After retiring, his world had become smaller. Morning coffee, short walks, bills paid on time, and quiet evenings in the same apartment he had owned for decades. He wasn't looking for opportunity. He wasn't chasing money. That's what made what happened next so dangerous. The caller introduced himself as Daniel Mercer. He spoke clearly, without pressure, like someone who already knew he wouldn't be refused. He explained that Richard's building had been flagged as part of a redevelopment interest zone. Private investors were quietly buying out older units before a larger city-backed project was announced. Richard didn't fully understand the process, but Daniel didn't overwhelm him. He simplified everything, said Richard was in a rare position because he owned his apartment outright, said people like him were being contacted early. What made Richard stay on the call wasn't the opportunity, it was the detail. Daniel referenced the exact year Richard purchased the apartment. He mentioned nearby properties that had recently changed hands. He even described structural issues common in buildings from that era, issues Richard himself had dealt with years ago. It didn't feel like a sales pitch. It felt like a conversation with someone who had done their homework. Daniel didn't ask for money that day. He didn't even suggest it. He simply offered to send information and told Richard to take his time. That built trust faster than any promise could have. The documents arrived the next morning, clean, organized, professional. They included redevelopment outlines, projected property values, and what looked like official filings. Richard checked what he could. Some details matched public information. That was enough to lower his guard. Over the next week, the calls continued, short, focused, never repetitive. Daniel explained that investors weren't buying buildings directly. They were securing positions in acquisition groups that would purchase properties once enough owners agreed. It sounded complicated, but Daniel kept it reducing to simple terms. You're getting in early, before prices jump. The first decision Richard made didn't feel like a risk. It felt like participation. $10,000, a small portion of his savings. He told himself it was just to see how the process worked. The confirmation came quickly. A receipt, a contract update, access to a portal showing his position. Everything moved efficiently, which reassured him. Within 2 weeks, he received a report showing increased valuation based on new investor activity. The numbers had gone up. That changed something. Richard wasn't greedy, but he was practical. If something worked once, it made sense to repeat it. Daniel didn't push him, but he didn't need to. The system was already doing the work. The updates kept coming, each one reinforcing the idea that this was real. The second investment was larger, then a third. Each time, the process became easier, faster, more familiar. The hesitation disappeared. What Richard didn't see was how controlled everything was, the timing of updates, the steady growth in numbers, the careful balance between communication and distance. It was all designed to guide him without making him feel guided. Weeks turned into months. Richard started thinking differently about his future. For the first time since retiring, he wasn't calculating how long his savings would last. He was thinking about what he could do with them. That's when Daniel introduced the final step. He called it a conversion opportunity. Early investors, he explained, could move their positions into direct acquisition shares before the redevelopment announcement went public. It required a larger commitment, but it would lock in significantly higher returns. He didn't rush the explanation. He let the idea settle. Richard asked questions, more than before. Daniel answered all of them, calmly, clearly. Nothing sounded uncertain. The amount required was more than Richard had ever moved at once. To reach it, he would need to combine most of his remaining savings. That thought stayed with him longer than anything else. Not the promise of returns, not the opportunity, just the weight of that number. Daniel didn't call the next day, or the day after. When he didn't ask for a decision. He simply said, "I wanted to make sure you didn't miss the window." That was enough. Richard made the transfer. It didn't feel reckless. It felt like the logical next step in something that had already been working. For a few days, everything continued as usual. Updates, confirmations, numbers moving upward. Nothing broke, nothing changed. Then slowly, things began to shift. The portal loaded slower. One day, it didn't load at all. Richard tried again later. Same result. He called Daniel. No answer. He waited an hour. Called again. Voicemail. He told himself it was nothing. Systems fail. People get busy. An email arrived the next morning. It mentioned temporary access issues due to system upgrades. The wording sounded professional, but something about it felt off, less precise than before. Richard replied. No response. He called again. Still nothing. By the third day, the quiet started to feel different. Not normal silence, empty silence. Richard went back to the documents, read them carefully this time, not just scanning, but checking. He noticed small things he hadn't before. A company address that didn't match the formatting of others. A permit number that didn't follow the same pattern as city records. He searched for the company name online. It appeared, but only in places that looked recently created. No history, no depth. The realization didn't hit all at once. It came in pieces. First doubt, then discomfort, then clarity. The numbers he had been watching for months weren't real. The system he trusted didn't exist. The man who knew everything about his apartment had used that knowledge to build credibility, not truth. Richard didn't panic, not immediately. He sat in his chair just as he had during the first call and stared at the phone. This time, he didn't pick it up. The loss wasn't just financial, it was structural. Everything he relied on, documents, data, process, had been used against him. That's what made it hard to accept. When he finally contacted his bank, the response was direct. The transfers had been authorized, and the chances of recovery were minimal. Cases like this followed patterns, organized, planned, executed over time. That word stayed with him. Time. Nothing about what happened was rushed. That was the point. The longer it took, the more real it felt. Richard began writing everything down. Dates, amounts, conversations. Not because he thought it would fix anything, but because it forced him to see the full picture. Every step had a purpose. Every detail was placed carefully. The opening hook, the exact value of his apartment, hadn't been random. It was the anchor, the moment that made everything else believable. And everything after that had followed it perfectly. Richard still lives in the same apartment in New York, New York. The numbers are gone, the plans are gone, but the understanding remains. Now when the phone rings and someone sounds too prepared, too informed, too precise, he doesn't listen, because he knows exactly how that story ends.